Hello, and welcome to another Christmas episode of the Heartbeat of Faith podcast. I'm Dr. Andrew Farley, and it's my joy to spend time with you today as we seek to uncover the true meaning of Christmas. Christmas can mean a lot of different things. For some, it's all about family traditions. To others, it's about the bottom line and meeting quotas. What does Christmas mean to God? What makes the birth of Jesus worth celebrating? Christmas marks the day God fulfilled his desire to recapture oneness with his image bearers, and that's us. Since the beginning, God has desired to dwell with humanity in partnership and unity.
The world was new, and its refreshing mist was covering the land. Streams and rivers flowed from the ground, giving life to all plants and living creatures. Among the quiet and new earth, God was at work. Personally and intricately, God formed a man from the dust, as a potter does with clay. Then he breathed life into him. God named him and knew him. His name was Adam.
The connection between God and humanity was severed when Adam and Eve fell and sin entered the world. But there was a plan to restore connection with God. God began this process by choosing a family to bless, the family of Abraham.
Out of the line of Shem came Abram, a man well advanced in years. When Abram was 75 years old, the Lord spoke to him, saying, "Go away from your country and your people to an unknown land. I have a place for you. I will bless those who bless you, and curse those who dishonor you. And through you all the nations shall be blessed."
God continued to guide, protect, and multiply Abraham's descendants, just as he promised. He led them out of captivity and took his plan further, making a new promise and dwelling with them in the tabernacle. The tabernacle was the next step in God's grand plan to restore connection between God and his people. He resided in a tent to follow his nomadic people into the promised land.
God's commands held weight, and the people feared and respected him enough to listen, for there was still thunder echoing from the mountain. It was always God's desire to dwell with his children. Since the garden, he desired to walk through life with those he loved. So he told Moses to have them build a tabernacle so he might live among them, a holy place for the Spirit of the Lord to dwell among his people. So the Israelites did as the Lord said, and built him a tabernacle, a tent for him to travel alongside them in the wilderness. Though God was not confined to a tent, this would be a holy place for him to meet with them and be in their midst.
God dwelt with his people, giving commands and protecting them in the wilderness. He established his covenant and promised an everlasting kingdom through the line of King David. Since the nation of Israel was no longer a nomadic tribe, but rather an established empire, God transitioned from dwelling in the tabernacle to dwelling in the temple built by Solomon.
Springtime waltzed into the land like a joyful song. Solomon and his workforce had worked day and night unto the Lord. The sun was gentle, and the breeze was kind. Spring flowers bloomed in an array of colors and smells. It had been 480 years since the people of Israel were delivered out of slavery, and for the first time Israel began to feel permanent. The people watched as the massive temple was built before them. This was a symbol of their freedom. Solomon looked up at the temple. The sun reflected off of its roof beautifully. Nearly finished, Solomon could finally step back to appreciate the work. God spoke in the coolness of midday, saying, "Remember what this temple means. Obey me, and I will fulfill my promise to your father. I will live among you and will never abandon you." Solomon closed his eyes and took a deep breath. He was content.
God dwelled with the nation of Israel, and the kingdom was established and set up to thrive. However, Israel continually slipped away. They disobeyed God, and they made themselves vulnerable to other nations. They were attacked and dragged out as exiles. For a time, the thought of a country established by God seemed lost, until a glimmer of hope flickered in the darkness. The prophet Isaiah had a message from God, a reminder of the promise he gave Adam, Eve, Abraham, and David long ago.
"Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin will conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Immanuel." Isaiah 7:14.
Immanuel means God with us. That has been the aim of God's heart all along. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what thrills God? What seems to be the aim of His pleasure and fulfillment of His joy? If you follow the thread of Scripture, it becomes apparent that God finds immense joy in being with us. He wants to be Immanuel, God with us. Hundreds of years later, the prophecy of hope, the anthem of deliverance, and declaration of God's loving intention was fulfilled. The angel Gabriel visited the small town of Nazareth. There he spoke to a young virgin named Mary and declared a promise over her.
Mary drew the water from the well, humming a sweet tune in the morning sun. She carried the water back to the goats, wiped her hands, and entered into her home. As she entered her home, she saw the angel Gabriel sitting near her window. Mary gasped and fell back towards the wall. Gabriel smiled. "Greetings, O favored woman of God," he said warmly. Mary was speechless. The angel's presence disturbed her, and she darted her eyes towards the door to run. "Do not be afraid," Gabriel exclaimed. "You have found favor with God." Mary's heart was beating fast. She was only a girl and could not imagine what use God would have of her. Gabriel bent down closely to her. "You will conceive a son. His name will be Jesus. He will be the promised Son of David, the Messiah, the Son of the living God, the King to bring peace upon all the nations." Mary's eyes began to water as the angel spoke. "His kingdom will reign forever. At his name every knee shall bow, and every broken heart made whole."
The birth of Jesus brought the fulfillment of God's promise to dwell with humanity. Through faith in Jesus, we all reclaim the unity that was lost in the Garden of Eden. In fact, we get something better than Adam and Eve ever enjoyed. Think about it. They sinned once and lost life. We sin every day and never lose life. We get to walk in permanent union with Christ, now and forever. When we celebrate Christmas, we celebrate Immanuel. For us, Christmas means compatibility, God's divinity being compatible with our humanity. We see this compatibility not just with Jesus living 33 years as one of us. We also see the compatibility with the presence of Christ in us today. Just beneath our humanity, just beneath our skin and bones and everything that we call us, Christ lives there, within us, forever. In the deepest and most profound way possible, He has become our Immanuel. Thank you for listening to the Heartbeat of Faith podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please leave us a review and let us know how this series has impacted your life. Download the pray.com app, and for more encouragement in God's grace, visit andrewfarley.org. That's andrewfarley.org.
America's federal debt just reached $33 trillion, and many economists predict the weight of this crippling debt load will soon topple the whole financial system. Concerned Americans are diversifying their assets into physical gold with the help of Birch Gold Group. If you want a physical asset held in a tax-sheltered retirement account, you should call Birch Gold too. But learn for yourself. Text the word heartbeat to 989898 and they'll send you a free info kit on gold. If you have an IRA or a 401k from a previous employer just gathering dust, Birch Gold can help you convert it into an IRA in gold, and you don't have to pay a penny out of pocket. Text heartbeat to the number 989898 to claim your free info kit on gold. There's no cost or obligation, so do it now. Text heartbeat to 989898.